What is the story behind El Hilo? When did I created it? And how did it all started? Hi, my name is Javi Benitez, and I will try to answer these questions. The story behind El Hilo started millions of years ago with a huge ball of fire. Then came the dinosaurs, and then the torn and restored thread. Well, maybe I oversimplified it a little bit too much, but it is true that the torn and restored thread, or the gypsy thread as it is also known, is a very old trick that appeared in the first books of magic, and there has been many versions of it, and most of the greatest magicians of all time have presented it in their own style. The story behind El Hilo, I call it El Hilo, in English would be El Hilo, but the translation is the thread, the thread. And El Hilo is my personal interpretation of the torn and restored thread trick that begins around 1991, watching Juan Tamariz on TV performing this trick, and also begins with the conception of magic learned by Arturo Dascanio, called the magical atmosphere. Because as Ascanio used to say, method in magic should not only not be seen, it should not even be suspected. What has a lot in common with the Tamariz conception detailed in the Magic Way book. So these two conceptions is to get the most strongest effect possible without any suspicious of the audience. That's one big part of the beginning of the routine. But also it is important to mention that the influence by Paul Le Paul book, The Magic of Paul Le Paul, contains an article of one-page article talking about simplicity, and simplicity, the keynote to good magic. So this idea of achieving the maximum effect with minimum resources was very clear to me when I was thinking about the gypsy thread trick at the very beginning. So those conceptions of what magic should be, and this first experience watching Tamariz on TV performing the trick are, let's say, the very beginning of the routine. But going further, I really like it, the simplicity and cleanliness of the trick. I thought that it was simple enough to try to apply a very simple technique in creativity you may know called what if. And so I thought, what if I were a real magician? How I would accomplish this magical effect? Uh, Around that time, I was also in high school, and I had a wonderful teacher in art history. And I remember in those classes that I got very impressed by the Netherland paintings of 17th and 18th centuries with Rembrandt, Van Honthors, or Terbuchen, and also others from Italy and Spain, like Greco and others. And those paintings had in common what is called chiaroscuro. I learned that at that time. But this darkness and light, this contrast was very interesting. Thinking how to apply thousands of years of knowledge in the art of painting to the art of magic. So I decided to apply this idea of chiaroscuro and strong contrast in this trick, the turn and restore thread trick. The problem was, but how? Well, looking for the maximum contrast, like in chiaroscuro, the maximum contrast between the initial situation of the trick and the final situation. The initial situation is when you break the thread, and the final situation when you restore the thread. And as Canio said, as much contrast between the initial situation and the final situation, the greatest effect that you get. So to get the maximum contrast, not only the thread should be broken like in the classic routine, but done in a way that seems out of control from the part of the magician. That the contrast between the movements and not only the breaking things, but everything should be in contrast. That's what I thought. No, so I had to look for a method that allowed me to be out of control. And the traditional method of this trick didn't allow me to be out of control at all. The problem is that visually, when your movement looks precise all the time, everything looks under control. So if I were a real magician, I would break the thread crazily. That's what I thought, no? If I were a real magician, I don't mind how to break the thread like this, but not this not this way, no? Like in the one of the classic routines or some of them, no? Like not this way that looks very very precise. You know what I mean? That so that was the first step uh, of this, and the second step came for the final phase of the trick, where let's say the encore of the trick, where the thread transformed into ashes. Originally, the thread were going to transform into a white fish. That was my idea. I practiced with it, but I changed that later for practical purposes, And this idea came playing with the meaning of the effect. I also learned that from Juan Tamariz. Again, every effect symbolizes something or many things. For example, linking rings could symbolize liberty when they unlink, for example, or the restoration of an object could symbolize resurrection or immortality. So I decided to add another effect after the restoration of the thread, linked to the first one because of what it symbolizes, no? So in this case, the thread breaks, but restores. So is a resurrection. And if we are in resurrection, maybe we could take the thread and transform into a fish. No, 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 no. Symbolize life and this resurrection and life together. This way, I could create a narrative through the symbolism of magical effects. But anyway, I don't want to bore you with all these ideas that are for sure for another platform. So let's go further. The problem was that I had all these ideas in my mind, but I had one big, huge problem. I had no method to accomplish this premise. So what I did was to start from the very beginning. I studied all the routines that I could find. I practiced them at home and also in live performances. And I talked with many magicians as much as I could about this. So finally, over the years, I came with a very, I hope, very clean method that allowed me to be totally free. Later on, accidentally, in the gala of the Car Magic Days of Escorial that takes place every year since the 70s. Well, I've been attending that since the 90s. And in this convention came the idea of using the spectator as a collaborator of the trick. I remember that day in the gala at night, I was performing for magicians, and near me was Camilo Vasquez. Camilo Vasquez is an amazing Spanish magician that, if I had time, I would love to talk about him. He's amazing. But anyway, I accidentally asked him to help me for the trick, which was not planned at all. And at that moment, I found out that the method could be covered even better with the use of a spectator. I just called him to help me, but I was improvising something. I don't know. I just got crazy, and then he took the pieces, and then boom, came out this. I found out that accidentally, totally, but the result was that I got that they bigger deceptions. Magicians were like, "What the hell?" I got more entertainment because of the relationship between me and the spectator. So that day, the routine make even bigger. So anyway, this is the short story of El Hilo, or El Hilo, if you want to call it like that. The long one will be for a future moment when we could be together in a magic convention with a drink and cards all over the table. That would be great. Since then, please take care and enjoy as much as you can. And if you decide to purchase a Hilo, please enjoy it as much as I've been enjoying it for all these years with it. This little trick is very special for me. And now I hope it will be very special for you too. So see you soon, my friend. Hope to see you live really, really soon. Hope this year, if not next year. Bye bye. Love.